So, trying something a little bit new today. We are doing a tag team review. I am here with Eighth, who is on the other side of the house in his room. So, I know that's kind of weird, but that's the way he wanted to do it. That's the way we're doing it.
Yeah,
So, we are talking about the PS5 today. We have had the PS5 for what now? 6, 7 months? Something like
around
that?
there. Yeah.
Okay. So, you've had plenty of time to acclimate yourself to it and figure out all the things that you like and all the things that you don't because you have your own and I have my own. So we both haven't had to share. So I'm sure there'll be some things you and I agree on and things that we don't agree on.
Yeah.
I figure we might as well start with the first thing, and that's the hardware.
Well, for a console, it's pretty powerful. Um,
Mhm.
it's a lot more capable than the PS4 or the PS4 Pro was. In terms of like ray tracing power, like what it can push there, I think it's a little bit underwhelming compared to what I was used to with the 2060 Super. But I don't know if that's because it doesn't really have a upscaling technique that doesn't make everything look like an oil pastel yet. The trade-off is always like, a subpar 30 frames per second when you turn on ray tracing. So it's like not even worth turning on most of the time unless it's Insomniac.
Yeah, they need to be sharing their tech with everybody else as far as PS5 goes, I think.
Uh
What do you think about the onboard storage?
oh, the 600 and whatever.
Yeah,
Uh
after the operating system
yeah.
takes its chunk.
Yeah. It's definitely something you have to work around. I can only ever have like 5 or 6 things installed at once, pretty much, because everything is in the 50 to 60 gig range now, so you can only ever have a handful of shit installed anyways.
This being the first year of the launch, and there's not really that much first or third party out for the new systems, really. We've been hitting the PS4 library quite a bit, so
Yeah,
at some point we probably need to get you an external since you can run all of your PS4 games off external storage and not have to take up your space on the SSD.
yeah.
What do you think about the user interface?
It kind of feels split in half. The main UI and then like the home bar or whatever they call it, where you press the PlayStation button and then it pops up from the bottom. I don't like that thing. It feels like it wants to be like a Windows taskbar or something, and it just
Yeah.
fails. Yeah, I wish it was just the PS4 UI, honestly.
I understand what they were going with because basically what they did was they took all of the system stuff that used to have its own place on the crossbar menu and they moved it all the way over into the little corner when you click on the gear. And
Yeah,
so what was left was media and games. And so now you just have media and games up at the top and then the bar of your most recent stuff depending on which one you have selected. I like that because it simplifies things a lot. It's a lot cleaner.
yeah,
However, one thing that I miss because of the fact that when you're in game, you only have your most recent 6 or 7 games that you've played, and then you got to go into your library. On the PS4, you could set up folders and you could sort them any way that you wanted.
yeah,
And so, I had a folder for JRPGs, fighting games, beat 'em ups. I had all these different folders and I had everything sorted by genre. And you can go into your library and sort it in various different ways, but it's not as easy as just having those folders there where you can just click on them and they're all, and
yeah.
everything for that genre is where you want it. I don't like that. I miss
Hmm.
having active themes
Yeah,
because on the PS4, I found this free theme that I really liked early in the PS4's life that had I think it was a free one that was a promotion for a book and it had like a graveyard across the top and then under the bar you had this animated screaming skull with a bunch of ghostly hands coming out of the abyss grabbing at it with this spooky music playing. And I liked that theme so
Yeah.
much, I kept it all the way through the PS4. And when I upgraded to my Pro, I installed it on there too. So then we get the PS5, and I'm thinking I'm going to install that theme on here, and I'm just going to keep rocking that theme because I haven't found one I like better. No themes. Everyone is stuck with the same generic background. Everyone is stuck with the same ambient music, and it's kind of lame to put
Yeah.
all this thought into redesigning the UI, and then there's absolutely no options for customizing it to your own personal visual taste. It kind of sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a
And
fan of that.
and then one other problem that I have with the UI is that I like how the store is now like fully integrated into it. You know,
Yeah.
there's no delay. You're not waiting for the store to load. You just go to the store and bam, it's all there.
Yeah.
But they really need to improve the uh the ways that you can search for things on the store. If you know the exact name of the game, you can search for it. But let's say you wanted to be able to search uh, by game director. Like if you wanted to pull up every game on there made by Hideo Kojima, you know, you ought to be able to do that. If you want to pull up a list of every game that was published by Square Enix, you should be able to sort by publisher or sort by developer. What do you think of the DualSense? How you like the DualSense?
Uh, honestly, it's probably the closest thing to a generational leap I'd say the PS5 gets. Because, you know, there's better graphics and all, but stuff doesn't really look all that much better than stuff on the PS4 Pro did. But that's like the main thing for me that makes it feel like it's new, I guess.
In regards to not looking that much better from the PS4 Pro, uh, I mean, you know the specs of the two systems.
Yeah.
There's definitely a generational leap in the overall hardware power,
Yeah.
but is what you're seeing the fault of the system, or is that more that this first batch of
Yeah.
games that's come out this year were basically
Yeah.
games that were designed with the last generation in mind, and they've just kind of up-resed everything, with the exception of like Demon Souls and Ratchet and Clank.
I think there's just kind of like an upper limit to what you can pull off graphically, and I feel like artists are starting to hit that upper limit of what you can pull off in terms of
Yeah,
realism. So we're
yeah.
basically just waiting for studios to figure out how to use that much power artistically. But right now, most stuff, even Demon Souls, it just looks like, you know, a PS4 game with all the settings turned up to max, at least to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks
I don't.
pretty, but
I think I think in that regard, if you were wanting to see what the generational leap was, you would be better off looking at the launch games for PS4 versus the launch games for PS5. Not looking at, for example, Ghost of Tsushima versus the launch games for PS5. Because Ghost of Tsushima represented like the absolute peak maximum of what they'd been able to figure out how to do with the
yeah,
PS4
environmentally,
versus,
anyways.
yeah.
Lip sync
So,
had some issues here and there, but
yeah. Now, as far as the DualSense, I like it all right. It's, you know,
yeah,
it's got some really interesting tech in it, but it's tech that I don't really use. Because for me, I consider the controller shaking in my hand a distraction. I don't really like it.
yeah,
And so I even on previous systems from the PS2 all the way up to now, I usually turn vibration off because I don't like it. It distracts me.
yeah,
And with the adaptive triggers, kind of the same thing. You know, unless most of the games that have had it, you can turn it off and play them just as well without it. There's only been like a small handful of instances where I could tell, you know, the real advantage to having it turned on. like for example, Astro's Playroom, you know.
Yeah.
But for example, with Ratchet and Clank, uh, that just came out, Rift Apart, it has the adaptive triggers where holding it down halfway does one thing with the gun, and holding it down the rest of the way does other things and stuff like that. But you turn that off, and you don't really notice that much of a difference. It just turning it off just makes it play like traditional Ratchet and Clank. So I just didn't use it. I can understand why a lot of people like it, how it increases their immersion, but for
Yeah.
me, it to me it's just another distraction that I don't really care to utilize.
I liked
Plus,
it in
what
Ratchet and Clank.
I think, well, I know you did. You were pretty excited about it when you told me about it, because of course you played through it before me.
Yeah.
In case any of y'all didn't know, whenever we get a new game, Eighth always gets first dibs, and I have to wait for him to finish it before we're done. Uh, I can understand why a lot of people, including you, like that sort of thing. It just, for me, it just distracts. And
Yeah.
so on top of that, not using it conserves the battery. The battery lasts longer, which you and I don't have issues with battery anyway, because both of us have two controllers. So while we're using one, the other one's charging, we just swap them out. I haven't had any issues
Yeah.
myself with control stick lag, analog stick lag, or drift. I haven't had obviously the triggers have not had any problems, and both of us have put in well over 400 hours apiece on these things.
Yeah.
Which you had all that gloom and doom that was going around on the net, that all these controllers are only rated to last 400 hours.
Yeah, my
That one
ass.
little part was gauged at being peak performance on average under uh, stress conditions in a testing environment at 400 hours. And guess what? That's the same little component that every analog stick controller out there, including the Xbox and the Switch, use. And that doesn't mean it cracks me up that people actually thought that. It doesn't mean the controller is only going to last 400 hours and then you have to buy a new one. It means that they took that little part and they hooked it up in a machine in a lab that was just going for 400 straight hours, and it broke. Now, I don't know about you guys out there watching, but I don't sit 24 hours a day in my recliner with my PS5 on going da 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 da.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
I use mine on the PC here, and I play that way more than I do PlayStation. I
Yeah,
mean,
Eighth has
here,
become more of he's joined the PC master race. So consoles have now become his secondary platform. He plays the exclusives, and that's just about it. Everything else is PC now, especially since he's rocking that 3080 beast that I bought him earlier in the year.
yeah,
What do you think of both first and third party, the things that have come out so far this year?
kind of weak right now. Um, yeah, there just isn't a whole lot. I mean, third party is definitely stronger than first party right now, especially since it's looking like their approach is going to be let's make director's cuts of everything we have. Like Scarlet Nexus has been fun. Uh I'm failing to think of any others off the top of my head. uh
There ain't that much to talk about, really, when you think about it. There haven't been that many big box first or third party releases. You had Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you had Immortal, whatever it was, Immortal Phoenix or Phoenix Rising or what that Breath of the Wild ripoff that came out not too long after the system launched.
so Astro's Playroom, Demon Souls,
Right.
Destruction All Stars, I guess.
uh,
Miles Morales,
right.
Spider-Man Remastered, Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, Sackboy, and that's basically it.
Yeah. And then on the Xbox side, we've had the medium. That's pretty much it.
which
The
is
medium. That's
coming to PlayStation now. So
yeah, it's coming to PlayStation. So now it doesn't even count. It's third party. In fact, I saw a listing for it on the digital store a couple of days
yeah,
ago.
I saw that
Yeah.
in the coming soon section.
Now they've got some stuff coming out later in the year. They've got the new Forza coming out. They've got Halo Infinite.
Yeah,
But it's as far as first party stuff, it's been kind of one sided this year. But again, some of the stuff that's come out for PS5 is stuff that either is on PS4 or probably could manage PS4. Certainly not Ratchet and Clank. There's no way that game would run on PS4
no.
at all.
I think
But
if you
I think
lowered the resolution of like Demon Souls, you could probably get it running at like 30 frames on a PS4.
yeah, probably, and they probably have to turn some of the effects off, maybe.
Yeah,
But
like the real-time shadows or whatever, replace it with a
right,
more standard thing. They
yeah,
could
but that
probably
one
get that running on a 4.
yeah, it would just look like shit.
Yeah.
It'd look and run like crap compared to the PS5 one. But I think there's a lot of promise, especially since we're still waiting to hear from a lot of Sony studios yet on what they're working on PS5 wise. I mean, we know God of War is coming, and
Yeah.
we know the new Gran Turismo is coming, but we currently don't know what the other Insomniac studio is working on right now, unless it's Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
We don't really know what Naughty Dog's working on, aside from the rumor that they're remastering the original Last of Us again. So, and
Well,
Sucker Punch is getting ready to release the director's cut of Ghost of Tsushima, but we have no idea what else they're working on, if they're doing a Tsushima 2 or if they're going to a whole new thing. We don't know.
yeah. Honestly, I hope they do a Tsushima 2. As
I mean,
nice as it would be to see another Infamous with Cole in it, I think they kind of killed the momentum of that series with Delson a little
yeah,
bit, so I think they should just let it be. I think they did what they did, and it's gonna stay that way.
yeah, yeah. Well, is there anything else, looking at the different criteria that we had here, hardware, interface, controller, games library, is there anything else you can think of that you consider a negative for the PS5 as far as the overall experience? Most of my stuff is little nitpicks like that.
Yeah,
The other big thing is that we still haven't gotten any word at all on the drive for the expandable storage.
yeah, the NVMe slot.
Right, the NVMe
Um,
slot. Still no word on when that's going to be turned on or what drives they recommend. And here we are 6-7 months into the launch.
the last I heard, it would be sometime this summer, and as far as I know, the only NVMe drives that are fast enough to keep up with it, they're like, you know, extremely expensive.
Oh yeah.
Like $200+ type shit.
Well, the little memory cards for the Xbox Series X aren't exactly cheap themselves, but
Yeah. But they're like the WD Black series, and
oh yeah, yeah.
it's like 150 to $200 for like a 1 terabyte or some shit like that.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Well,
it's on up there.
I mean, I'm not really having a problem with it because you know how I do. I tend to install the one game that I'm playing, and I play that game till I'm done with it, and then I uninstall it and I
Yeah.
install the next game that I'm playing. Oh, I have one other complaint. There's no built-in game boost for PS4 games. You're
Yeah.
basically stuck with whatever it is unless that game, as originally designed, had an unlocked frame rate, and then it'll probably be 60. But if it had a locked frame rate in the original release, like for example, Dragon Age Inquisition, you're still stuck running
Yeah.
at 30 frames per second. So then you're having to sit and wait for them to release upgrade patches for these games. And, that's one thing I can say about Microsoft. They were a little bit more forward thinking about this kind of thing because they implemented Game Boost for older games on the One X. So they already had it on the One X, and then carrying it over to Series X. Most of those Xbox One games, if not all of them, I'm not 100% on that, but most of them, you pop it in, they're already running better than they did on the One X or the One.
Yeah. I think there's like a supported list that they get a FPS boost over the original one. Well, I mean on a Xbox side of things.
Oh.
And as far as I know, that list is like several pages long, which we don't have several pages of upgraded games on the PS5. We have like a couple of handfuls. Like, I was wanting to finish up the trophies on Far Cry 5. It runs at 30 frames. I was hoping that Bloodborne would end up with an upgrade. We all know how that went.
That'll end up with a director's cut, I think.
Maybe. But just their way of supporting backwards compatibility is kind of, well, backwards. It's not very...
It's kind of...
It's not well thought out.
It's like they threw it in at the last minute because they knew, due to the COOF and everything else that was going on, that the first year was going to be kind of sparse for titles. So they wanted to make sure that everyone at least could still play all their PS4 games, but didn't really seem to show a lot of interest in making sure that PS4 games could show off the power of the new system. Yeah. Because it's absolutely true. Most of the PS4 games out there, you put them in and they run just like they did on PS4 Pro. That's all you get is, however, if it had a PS4 Pro performance mode, you get that on the PS5, but that's still a far cry from how well the PS5 could run it.
Yeah.
So most of the PS4 games out there are not showing you what that system, they're not showing the system off. And Sony needs to figure something out there. Although, because of them not being as forward thinking with this stuff, if the games are locked at 30 frames per second in the code, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And I'm assuming that even with whatever Microsoft is doing for a game, for some of the games like Dark Souls 3, they just recently announced that now you can play it at 60 frames per second.
Yeah, well that has
software have been infamous about locking their frame rates.
Dark Souls 3 on PS4 Pro had an unlocked frame rate. It would hover in like the 45 range on PS4 Pro. It's 60 on the PS5 because it was unlocked. They just announced that to have an announcement. They didn't have to do anything with that one.
Okay. Well, they just had an announcement on Series X for Dark Souls 3. I can't remember. It was either 60 or 120 frames. I can't remember.
It's not 120 because you can't even get up to 120 on PC. Because the logic of the game is tied to the frame rate. And if you go above 60, you'll start playing the game in like a fast forward mode where everything is sped up. And if you go below 30, it'll be in slow motion. So
I got you. And those wonderful guys at From Software, so forward thinking.
Yeah.
So forward. But what that goes to show you is that even on the Series X, with them having a better solution for older games showing off the new hardware, there's still games on it that end up having to be patched. And especially for the really old stuff like the 360 and OG Xbox stuff, and a lot of that just comes down to because neither of these systems are using real backwards compatibility where it's running off the disc. That's another thing. Overall backwards compatibility with the PS5, the amount of power that thing has, there's no reason why it couldn't run PS1, PS2, and a lot of the PS3 games. Not all of them, but a lot of them. There's no reason why it couldn't.
Yeah.
You've got PCs out there that aren't as powerful as PS5, but they can run every PS1 and PS2 game and a lot of the PS3 library through emulators.
Yeah.
There's no reason why emulators for those three systems could not have been implemented into the actual operating system of the PS5.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, but I would have, if they had done that, I wouldn't want it like Xbox where you're only getting games where they've gotten a license for it. I would have wanted it where you pop the disc in because you actually own it and it loads it off the disc.
it loads what's
care.
on the disc.
Right. I don't care about adding trophy support, and I don't care if it's running at just 720p or whatever. I want to be able to just load it off the disc.
Yeah.
So,
well, you'd probably be able to do that with earlier PS3 games if they implemented that, but later ones, they started doing their bullshit that got really big on the PS4, where it's like, here's some of the game on the disc, here's the rest of it in this 30 gig patch.
We have nobody but ourselves to blame for that, really, because we didn't complain about it when both Microsoft and Xbox started doing that, and Nintendo now on the Switch. There's several Switch games out there where you have the card, but there's only a fraction of the game actually on the card, and it downloads the rest of it.
Yeah.
And so the next thing you know, you've run out of memory on your Switch. A storage memory, that is. But, you know, that's just another symptom of the modern digital age that we're going into. And eventually, nothing of what we know of as traditional console gaming will be left. So what out of 8 would you give the PS5 right now?
Honestly, like a 5.5 to like a 6.
5.5 to 6 out of 8.
Kind of shaky right now.
Is that mainly because of the library, or?
Yeah, it's mainly because of the library. I mean, like, the performance gap between, like, you know, the PS5 and the Series X, that they claim there's a huge difference between them, I don't really pay any credence to. You know? Because, like, base 3080 is like 30, and then mine is 32 in terms of teraflops or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
2 extra teraflops isn't going to make a huge difference, and it doesn't. So, you know, the consoles in terms of performance might as well be identical to me.
The power difference in teraflops between the Series X and the PS5 ain't that much different than the power gap between the One X and the PS4 Pro. And we still had games that had better frame rates and whatnot on the Pro than was on the One X last gen.
Yeah.
So
it's all up to the optimization.
Right. It's not about power alone. It's, you know, how skilled the people are at squeezing the most out of that power on the dev teams that are putting the games out. And even so, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the most powerful console has never won a console generation, short of maybe the Super Nintendo, and even that is debatable because of how long it was on the market compared to the Genesis. It's always been about two things: price and library.
Yeah.
And right now, PS5 is kicking Xbox's ass in library. Is that going to change in a year or two when we start seeing releases from all these studios they've bought? That kind of depends, because Bethesda hasn't been worth a crap in years.
No.
They haven't put out a good game since Skyrim, and even it was full of bugs. Doom Eternal was not, in my opinion, as good as Doom 2016 because it was just running down corridors between arena rooms.
I mean, I liked it, but that is what it is.
And
you're running from one combat situation to the next.
Yeah. I wasn't that keen on Deathloop before it was announced that they had bought that studio. When it was first shown at that
I'm not
event,
especially interested.
It didn't look like anything I'd give a crap about. And then when I found out that that studio had been bought, I was like, okay,
Yeah,
because I wasn't that big a fan of Dishonored or Dishonored 2 either.
I couldn't get into
So
him.
so you're 5.5 out of 8. Now I do things different. I'm on a 7 scale. Uh, I would rate it probably uh, a 5.5 to a 6 out of 7. The things that I've complained about on here, I consider minor things like the organization of the store and not having a custom theme. You know, those are minor little things.
Yeah,
The overall performance of it, you know, we've had no crashes, we've had no hardware failures, you know, we've had no issues going in and out of rest mode. So
yeah,
I know you had like a couple of crashes with Returnal when they had like a patch that they installed and it messed the game up and then they had to repatch it. And both of us had a couple of crashes with Cyberpunk, but of course everybody's had crashes with Cyberpunk
yeah.
on every system that it was released
Yeah,
on.
I had crashes on PS5. I tested it on PS4, had crashes there. Played it all the way through on PC, had crashes there. So that I don't know if that's, the platforms or if it's Cyberpunk, but it's probably Cyberpunk.
It's probably Cyberpunk, yeah. But overall, you know, all the gloom and doom that was going around about the system back in when it came out, we haven't had any of that. We haven't
No.
had any of the weird graphical artifacting from, that typically happens from
Yeah.
GPU overheat and rest mode crashing the system and having to reinstall the software and all that
Yeah.
crap. And we certainly haven't had to have either one of them returned.
Yeah.
So I think that, and you know what? Now, if it was as bad as they were saying, we should still be seeing videos and new videos every day of people had to take back my PS5. It was doing that artifact thing. That's not happening. So, as far as I
Yeah.
can tell, based on how many units they sold versus how many actual complaints we had, it's that usual uh, average hardware failure rate that you get with every new system that comes out.
Yeah.
So certainly not anything like the Red Ring of Death
Yeah.
from 2 generations ago. Yeah,
Like what is coming out I've liked, but
like Scarlet Nexus. I know
like
you've really enjoyed that.
Scarlet Nexus has been fun, but it's multiplat. But
Yeah,
the new stuff that has come out, I've enjoyed. It's just even though there's that massive PS4 library that it has access to, I wish it used it better.
right.
So it's like, sure, I have plenty to play, but I wish I could play it better. That's
Yeah,
why I've docked it a bit more than you have, because most of what I play is PS4 stuff and stuff on PC, and it's kind of painful going from a game on PC to a PS4 game running at 30 frames per second.
right, right.
So
Absolutely, absolutely. No
they need
doubts
to
about
work on
that.
that backwards compatibility.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But so there you have it, friends and neighbors. We've got 5.5 out of 8, between 5.5 and 6 out of 7 for PS5. And we have Xbox Series X on the way. Supposedly, it's going to arrive this Saturday. So I shall put it through its paces, and we will have a review of that up as soon as possible and let you know what we think of it, all the ins and outs, the pluses and the minuses. We will go through every menu. We will play as many games. We both have Game Pass accounts. We will put this system through its paces, and we will give you the straight dope on that. Until then, this is 7th.
8th.
We will see y'all later. Bye bye.